Okay, welcome everybody. Today we have a awesome webinar for you guys. Um, this is something that I think gets overlooked all the time. And what it's about is when you're buying land, okay, so let's say you're a developer, whether you're building multifamily, townhomes, duplexes, or let's say you're looking to build your first home, okay, and you want to buy a lot and you've never bought one before. When you're going to buy a building lot, there are so many things that you need to look out for that nobody ever teaches you. Okay, this is stuff that never gets talked about. These are the things that only come up over years and years and years of experience. And I think it's actually quite silly that, most realtors don't even know this stuff. And all they talk about is location, location, location. And it's so far from the truth. Yeah, location matters. But there's a lot of situations that when you're buying a building lot, that you can cost yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, you can make huge mistakes, and most of them are preventable. If you go through the stuff, even half of the things that I'm going to teach you here, you can save yourself so much money, so much headache, so much time. It's ridiculous. So stay with me. I'm going to give you guys kind of a quick overview of what you need to look for when you're buying a building lot. And I'm even going to show you tools to help you do it. Okay. And I'm going to give you guys real world examples here. So today's presentation, like I said, basically is about, how to buy the right building lot. Okay. So this even applies if you're buying a property to flip that you might develop. So let's say you're buying it and you're thinking, oh, I want to resell it. Well, somebody that's coming to buy this lot to develop it, they may be knowledgeable enough to know to look for this stuff. So you want to make sure, once again, you're buying the right building lot. So let's get into it a little bit here. So what you can essentially expect about today is we're going to kind of give you a broad overview. Okay, I'm not going to go into all the details. This is the kind of stuff that we go over inside PRIA School. Once again, it's free. Come join us. Ask your questions. I answer all the questions personally. And guys, it's free. It's a no-brainer to be on PRIA School. If you need more detailed information, always come there. Ask me a question. I'm happy to help you guys out. This is not an exhaustive list, okay? The presentation would end up being hours in order for me to do it. If you need more information or if it's something that you're interested in, let me know. I've thought about even doing a course to help people because there are so many things you need to look for. And sometimes it's hard to get into all the details, but I'm going to do my best to give you guys as much information today. I'm going to teach you guys some tools that are going to speed up your research time through the moon. Okay. It really shouldn't take you more than, let's say, 15 minutes to half an hour to get a really good sense of a lot you're looking at once you understand how to use the tools. Okay. If you didn't know what tools to use and where to find them and what your city or your state or your province offers, then yeah, it's going to take a long time. So I'm going to give you some examples of kind of what I use in my local area, but there's usually equivalents for, doesn't matter what province or what state you're in. There's always stuff out there. And if you can't find it, go to your city and ask them. Most of the stuff is online. I'm going to show you things that people don't even think about. Okay. Like when you go buy a lot and you're looking at it, do you wonder if there's underground water? Most people don't, right? Do you think about, okay, I want to build this lot. Is this bush or tree going to affect me? But how do you know if it will? Well, this is what I'm going to go do. These are the things I'm going to teach you. Okay. Most important thing is how to avoid costly mistakes. There are just no-brainer things that when you're looking at a lot that can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm not joking. Okay. If you're in a situation where your lot is really steep and it could cost you tens of thousands of dollars in extra foundation work, extra digging, depending on the type of home or developer you're doing, streams, water. We're going to get into this stuff in more detail, but the real goal of this is to teach you guys, put these things in your toolkit, in your arsenal. How do I make sure that if I'm going to be doing something and I'm going to be buying a lot, that I protect myself from as much as possible? Also, when you're comparing lots, these are things that may help you differentiate based on price. Is this one worth more? Is this one worth less? Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about are what are some due diligence tools? Okay. So what are some of the tools that you can use to go through, do your research on a lot. So the first and most obvious one, and one of the most powerful, is Google Maps. Okay, the satellite view and the street view. I don't care if you're using Apple Maps, Google Maps, whatever maps you want. But things like when you go onto the website, you can have a street view and see a streetscape here. You can see the overview, satellite imagery. You can see trees, alleys, what the houses next to it look like. What's in the area. If you zoom out, you get an idea. Okay, there's a school here, a playground, a cemetery. Definitely all valuable stuff, right? We're going to get into this more detail, and I'm going to show you guys examples of how to use it. What about things like local land title websites? Okay, do you want to look up your titles? How do you find it, right? So once again, you can go into places like, in my local area, we have BC Land Title and Survey. Okay, there are similar things for Ontario, for each one of your states. Probably have some way to do online research to, find a title, look up a parcel map, anything like that. Depending on your area and depending on what's required for your city for developments, you're going to need to know where to find out this information. So try to find out what's available online for your local state or province. Now, if you're like, Jag, I have no idea, where do I get this information? Then what you should do is, and this is a real important thing, is go to the city of where you're going to be doing your development or your building or whatever, and ask them what online tools are available. Okay, ask them, where can I find titles? I'm going to go into things called VanMap and Burnaby Map, and these are basically online systems that basically show you a plethora of information. You guys won't believe what you have access to online for free. Some areas you do have to pay for it, but it's worth its weight in gold because it allows you to do so much research so quickly. Another thing you're going to want to know about is your city website. Okay, there's a lot of information on your city website. If you're looking for things like your community plans, so here I'll go to the official plan for Toronto. So this is Toronto's website. You can just Google Toronto OCP, official city plan, or community plan, depending what they call it. Here you can see information about the plan, secondary plans, plan reviews, schedules. Other stuff you can look in here is you can look for zoning bylaws. On your city's website, there will be a ton of information. So it's important to kind of get used to navigating it. And usually it's not by state or province. Usually these websites and this information will be city, town, or area, municipality. You just need to find out in the area you're developing, where do I go? Okay. What else do we have to look at here? What about your mapping services? Okay, so you're like, Jag, a lot of people don't even know about this. What is a mapping service? So this is what a mapping service looks like. Okay, this is called VanMap. All right, there's another one here. This is Burnaby. Inside here, you can scroll in and basically you're like, oh, Jag, this is just basically Google Street View. It's not even close. Inside here, it has every address for a property. These orange things here basically give you the outline of the property line. Inside of this, you actually have all of these different options if you want to see stuff. So let's just say we go into district and areas here. I want to see subdivision categories. So if I zoom out, this shows me kind of the different categories of subdivisions. And if you don't know about this stuff, and I understand that, you can learn. But if this is something you do need to know, most of these softwares show you this. Here's a great one, ALR. Is there any ALR in your area? Okay, in Vancouver, I don't believe there's any ALR. But if you were in somewhere maybe like Richmond or somewhere more rural, you may have some kind of agricultural land reserve. The zoning district. This is a real easy way. If you're looking for a particular type of zoning, you're going to figure out, okay, this is CD, this is RT, this is R1. Each municipality, each city, each town is going to have its own zoning numbers. So you have to learn what works for the development you're looking for. This is very easy information. You can learn all of this from the city website. If I go back to here, I'll just do this live with you guys. If I go for Vancouver, I'm just on Google here, Vancouver zoning districts. that. Okay, digital zoning map, City of Vancouver. Okay, I'm doing this live with you, so I haven't actually gone through this particular one. We use a different one here, but here, so they're showing you what's commercial, what's comprehensive development, what's historical, what's industrial, what's residential. Here's all the colors, and I'm sure there's a way you can even dig down even further and get into exactly what each zoning type is, and it will kind of give you an idea of what the zoning schedules are. So here, R11. So what does that mean? This is what the type of property you can build on R11. I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but I just want to show you guys that using your van map and your city website, the two things I just talked about, can be extremely powerful on their own. But I want to really go through and show you, how do I apply this to looking at properties? Okay, so let's keep going. Let's talk a little bit about what are some strategies on zoning. Okay, because obviously there's different zoning types. The first thing you need to do is, if you're buying a property, you need to make sure that that area is zoned for what you're doing. So if we go back to this example, right, and the yellow here is residential, the orange is commercial. If you're trying to build a residential property and you're buying a lot in a commercial area, it may not be possible to do what you want to do. So it's really important that if you want to build a duplex, is your area zoned to allow duplexes? If, let's say, you may end up on farmland and you can't even build the type of house you want to build, or maybe you're looking at a lot and you're thinking, I want to build a single family home there. And then you actually look into it and you find out, wow, this is actually rezoned for multifamily. That can be worth a ton more, which may make it even more desirable to get that piece of land. So what about if the zoning is correct? Okay, it still may not be possible to build what you want. Okay, so let's say it is zoned to allow a sixplex on this particular lot. Well, there may be other restrictions beyond the zoning that may not allow you to build that sixplex. It might be the size of the lot, and they say the maximum of this lot is a fourplex. There may be easements on the lot that may not allow you to build that sixplex. It may be close to a bus zone, or maybe there's restrictions on the out. Maybe there's restrictions for parking. All these things can come into play. So it's important that you don't just go by the zoning. You do your due diligence and look at everything if there's a certain type of property you're trying to build. If you're just looking for a property and what's the best thing for investment, then you can look at what's your best use case, which kind of takes me into sort of the next thing is, you want to check the official community plan if that area is going to get rezoned. So maybe you're like, okay, this area is a great area for single family. I'm going to build a house. And then you get halfway through building this house and you find out the city's actually about to rezone that multifamily and you're building a brand new single home. Well, that sucks because you're not getting the best use case out of that property. So you want to make sure that if you're going after a property, and you might even be paying more for it and not realize it because the person selling it realizes it's going to be rezoned. So just make sure that the property you're buying isn't going to be rezoned for something you don't want. Maybe it's going to be changed to commercial or something else. There's always going to be cases. It's not hard to check the community plan just to make sure you're safe. Can your zoning be changed to something more desirable? Is there an opportunity? Are you on the border of an area being rezoned? Maybe the area you're in is one house away from being allowed to be multi. So you can make a lot more money if you were to do a multifamily instead of a single family home. It doesn't hurt to go ask your city or your state, your province, whoever it is that manages your land, to say, hey, is there any possibility of rezoning this? You guys see signs all the time over town saying rezoning application. Somebody trying to turn something that might just be residential into residential commercial. Maybe they want first floor commercial, residential above. That can be a huge boon, okay? Because you can get a bunch of rental, basically change the entire value of the property. So just because it may not be zoned what you want, don't be scared to find out if you can change the zoning. It happens all of the time. Right. Now, let's talk about restrictions for a second. There are so many restrictions that can come in, number one, from building bylaws, but also from utilities. Okay, when I'm talking about utilities, that could be sewer, it could be power, it could be electrical. And if you don't understand them and you're going to buy a property and you're like, okay, Jag, I found a lot in the right spot. I've got the right zoning. It's the right use. It's exactly what I want to do. And you get in there and then electrical comes in and says, no, sorry, you have to be 5 feet away from this property line because we have a very high voltage transformer above. You can't build it there. That's a big deal. So how do we look at this stuff? So one thing I like to look at first is always setbacks and fire access. Okay. So I've got an example of an address here. Okay. And I'm going to deal with mostly in Vancouver and Burnaby because this is where I have the most examples. But this stuff is similar in almost any province, any state, any city. You have to look and be careful about what are your guidelines for setbacks? What are your guidelines for fire access? So let's look into a property. Let's look into 719 East 30th. So here's a property. Now I'm just using good old Google Maps here. All right. So I did a search. You guys can see here for 719 East 30th. Okay. Is bringing up this house here. You're like, okay, there's the lot. Looks all right. I can see there's houses. I can see there's some commercial here because it shows Shoppers Drug Mart. Now, what you might want to think about here is I want you guys to actually look really carefully into this area right here. Do you see this turn? Well, this could restrict your building depth because you may not be able to get a fire truck there. So it's very possible that this area of the house has an easement or restriction on it that you cannot build in the area so the fire truck can get around the corner, right? Or more importantly, the fire truck actually has to get access into these buildings. So another great way to look at this is I would go into Street View. Okay, so here we are. And funny enough, on Street View, here you can see a very large garbage truck going into this area. So let's go down the road here. This is the cool thing. You can just click over. Now we're beside the property. This is the property we were looking at. So we can see this access, the alley. We can see there's power lines above. But what we can also see is when we get to the back here, there is an access for the garage for this townhome project. There's also access here for commercial deliveries for the commercial areas over here. So we know if we're getting this lot, anybody coming to buy it may not actually like that. Okay. And you may be asking why. What's the big deal? It doesn't really affect my lot. Well, one thing I would think about is how much traffic is going to drive down here. All of these people have to get to and from work. So you're going to have cars going in and out here all the time. The other thing is you're going to have big commercial trucks coming in here. Commercial trucks, maybe you have forklifts and things like that. It could get noisy. So these are things, and also like you have these two garbage bins here. Are they going to be stinky? Are they going to be smelly? Are they going to ruin the prospect of that home? These are all things that you'd want to take into account, because does a fire truck need to be able to get through here? Probably. I mean, they already have a bollard there, so I don't think there'll actually be any restrictions for fire trucks, but you may want to find out. But maybe you actually can't put a house up here. You can't have a garage because there may be a restriction on height of how far you could build a garage in this corner. So when you're looking at this stuff, you want to think about, okay, is there any easements, anything that's getting in the way? And that's just a real simple thing to look at, pull it up on Google Maps and see, are there any restrictions? Okay, let's try another one. So let's go into lane width. So we're actually going to stay in the same area. So this property is at 779 East 30th Van, okay? And they won't allow a laneway without some kind of restriction, okay? Even though this is zoned RS1, which means it's allowed to have a laneway. So let's go back to this thing. So I want to go back, and I've pulled it up here. So here you guys can see 779 East 30th. Here's our property. Now, oddly enough, this has actually already been rezoned. This is the reason I picked this. And you can see that they've installed a laneway here. So you're like, Jag, you were saying they probably couldn't. Well, let's dig into this a little further. Okay, so I want to zoom out a bit. And I want you guys to look at the width of the lane here. And then I want you to look at the lane here. So what happened is the city put in a setback, actually both for this townhome project and for these homes that are being redeveloped, to allow for them to have a laneway. So if we go down to Street View, this is the front of the home. You can see it's a new home. But what we actually want to do, guys, this is the great thing. You can just go here into Google Maps. This is why I like it. And you can see here that it's actually showing me the lane narrows and was wider. So I'm just going to take my little dude here. Okay. If I can get him. That doesn't want me to pick him up. Usually you can actually pick this guy up. I don't know why it doesn't want to let me. And you can say, I want him to go over here. All right, that's not working. So let's just go back to this. So we'll shrink this down. Go back to our house. There's our new property. And we'll do it I already know our new property's on this side, so we'll do it the old-fashioned way. We'll walk around the block. Okay, this is another cool thing. You just use Google Maps and you can go around the block. And now we're into the alley. Okay, if the Google car went there. That's the other thing you have to watch out for. So you can see by this arrow, it's saying I can either go to the right or I can go to the left, but it's not actually allowing me to go down into the alley. So, but what you can see from this distance is you can say they've actually widened the alley here. Because if you remember, when we were over here, if I can get back to here, okay, so if I go back to here, so you can see now I can move my guy. And we went down this alley. This is where there was that parking lot up here, right? That was the entrance to the parking lot. And then down this alley, you can see they widened it on this end. Okay. So when you're looking at these properties, you want to make sure you're considering things like, is there an issue with my lane width? Because when you're looking at the RS1 zoning, it says you're allowed to have a laneway, but it actually requires a 20-foot lane width. This one here is only 10. Okay, so there's another case, another example where don't just trust what's, when you're buying the lot, that you just look at what's being sold. Okay, you have to do some investigation. Let's keep going. What are some other restrictions we can look out for? So another one is ditches. Okay. Now you might be like, what's the big deal of ditches? Well, the deal of ditches is sometimes if you want to build a garage or have a parking lane into your garage, it could actually restrict the use of your space. So here's a good example. This is more common in Burnaby. So I'm going to show you an example, and let's go back to the website here. So we're in Burnaby here. We want to look for, and on our PowerPoint, we figured 3836 Rumble. So I'm going to go in here and I want to see 3856 Rumble Street. Okay. So here it's showing it to me. Now I've also got it pulled up on Google Maps. So here's 3836 Rumble. You look at it, and if you're looking at this lot, you're like, okay, this is the house here. You're like, what's the big deal? Okay. So maybe you're looking at one of the neighboring properties. You see here, okay, there's just some bushes here. No big deal. This property, you're like, oh, there's just some grass, some bushes, no big deal. Let's go into Street View, right? So I want to go into the alley. So when you're in Street View, wherever these fluorescent blue lines are, those are areas where you can actually move your guy to. That means that the Google Streetcar went there. So if I click over here, it moved my guy into the alley. So now I'm going to use this little button in the corner here to minimize this. Now I have a much better view of me being in that alley. So over here, like we thought, there's some bushes over here, but we were actually looking at this property over here. So I'm going to go down the street a little bit, and you can see, oh, there's a ditch. You might be like, well, that's not really a big deal. If I'm buying this house, I'll just fill in that ditch. Well, in the city of Burnaby, you have to pay to fill that ditch. To pay that, fill that in there, you have to pay the city to do it. You can't do it yourself. Will cost you somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000. And you might be like, well, what's the big deal? And I'll go down a little further here and let's zoom out. Well, the big deal is depending where you want to put your garage, and this is kind of a newer house, but it needs redevelopment. Let's say you want to put your garage on this side here. That means you have to fill this in. And also the city usually restricts you to only 20 feet of driveway. So you need to find out if they will even let you fill this in. They may not. So if you're like, I want to build Burnaby's rezoned and allows laneways. I want to build a laneway here. I'm going to need more access. But the city says, no, this ditch, you can't refill it in. Well, that changes your use case for your property. Okay. So it's always important to, look for what are, again, the restrictions. This is a building and a utility restriction, because both utility, the sewer utility says, no, this has to be there because we want this for runoff for the road. And building code says you can only have a 20-foot driveway. So you need to find out, what can I do there, right? Let's try something else here. Guy wires. Now, a lot of you may not know what guy wires are. Guy wires are actually wires that basically restrict or provide tension for power poles. You may not realize it, but all power poles are basically kind of leaning one way or the other. And there's wires that actually put tension on them to prevent the wires from falling down and to make sure that they're under load. I'm sure there's a much more in-depth explanation, but that's the gist of kind of whatever I've gotten. So I found a situation here. Okay, this is at 2948 Carolina Street. So let's go to that one. I've got that one pulled up. So here I've got 2948 Carolina Street. Okay, so it happens to be right here on our map. If we zoom in a little bit, looks like a nice area, lots of trees. If you like that, there's a beautiful park right there. Okay, so we're getting in closer. We're looking at this property. Okay, it's next to an alley, nice street. I don't really see anything that wrong. Now, let's go down to street view. So here's our property. We're looking at it. Okay, go down the street. Okay, it's a nice street. Looking at a park, beautiful. Not too much to worry about. But if you're going to redevelop this property, you want to look all the way around. So let's go over here. Now, what I want to point out is, do you see this little yellow thing here? Let's see if we can actually go up a little further. We can. Beautiful. So, do you see that little yellow thing there? That actually is wires going up to this telephone pole. So you can actually see the wires right there coming down, the two of them. Those are pulled into this guy wire that has this yellow protective sleeve around it. What that means is, because this power pole is here and that guy wire is there, if you were to redevelop this property, you may not be able to put an entrance over here, or a garage entrance, or a house entrance. It may restrict your use. Okay. You wouldn't see that unless you took the time to go to the site, walk the site, do Google Maps. There would nowhere in your listing or anything would this come up. But when you go to develop this property, the other thing I want to look at is, okay, there's no transformers there, but there is a transformer right there. Is that going to restrict anything when I go down the street? Because here's the end of my lot right there. There's the end of my lot. Is that transformer going to restrict how close I can get to this property line when I'm redeveloping it? Okay. So if we go back to what we were looking at here, let me go back to the regular view. If we go back to what we were looking at here, we can see on that property right here, it doesn't, so where did it go? Where's my 3, 5, 6, 8? Sometimes you got to watch out. You do get moved around. The best thing to do sometimes is just throw the address back in, let it reset. You see how far I got pushed away? That can happen at times. So if I'm just looking, really, unless you understand that these are power wires, you're not going to really understand where the poles are. You're not going to understand if there's a guy wire. You're not going to understand any of that. So once again, I'm not going to get into too much depth on these, but I just want to give you guys some understanding and some overview of things that can come up. So now let's talk about another type of restriction, okay? Landscape restrictions. So just as a reminder, guys, those aren't all the building and utilities restrictions are. There's a lot more. I'm going to try to show you a couple more examples, but I just want to get you guys in the headspace of when you're buying a lot, it's not just about the listing, okay? So what are some landscape restrictions? Trees are restrictive hedges. So depending on your municipality, in Vancouver, you basically can't even take down a tree, and you can't even take down a lot of hedges now. Places like Whistler, you can take down almost any tree you want. Burnaby, somewhere in between. Your state, your province, your city, your municipality may have its own rules, and you're probably going to want to know what those rules are before you do this research. But one I'd like to show you guys here is 636 East 13th. Okay, so this is a lot that is ready to be redeveloped. So let's go to, again, my favorite. You guys can see I use Google a lot. So we're out front here, 636 East 13th. Okay, we're looking at this house, and this is in Vancouver, And look at these trees. You see 1, 2, 3 here, 4 there. Those are all on this lot. Okay. That's going to be a huge issue when you go to redevelop this. If we go into the map view of this, okay, oops, sorry. See, you got to be careful with this, and then it jumps around. So if I go into satellite view of this, and I zoom down into this, right? This is our subject property right here. Do you guys see all those trees? Okay, before I buy that property, I'm going to want to know from the city how much restriction are they going to give me? Okay, they often will allow you to take down trees if it impedes a development, but they're getting more and more strict on that. And that's specific to Vancouver. But if I was at Burnaby, if I was anywhere, I would want to find out what's going on with those trees. Okay, and I'm going to show you guys remember I told you there's a difference when you go to VanMap. So let's go into there for a second. So I want to go, not this one, I'm going to go into VanMap here, and I'm actually going to look up 656 East 13. Okay. So here it comes up. Oops, got to put a space in that. All right. So here it comes up. So here it's showing me my lot. Now I'm going to turn off my zoning district because that's what's over the top. So now if I look in here, I get an idea of, we're looking at 636. I put 656. So here we're looking at 636. Here you can see my building lot. It's showing me the line. It's not perfect, but it gives you an idea. Now you can actually see all of the trees that are there. Now, I guarantee you one of you guys will be like, well, Jay, I'll just cut the trees down. Well, here, let me show you another thing. Inside here, the city tracks all of the years of photos. So if I go back to 2006, okay, and I'm looking at my property here, I can see there's actually less trees here. They've gotten bigger over time. So if I go to 2009, yeah, that tree there hasn't actually filled in. Now, if I go to 2018, I can see some of those trees have come in. Well, if you take those trees away, the city actually will come back and look and see, were those trees there last year? See, 2002, 2020, 2018, they have a pretty good cache of photos of what's going on. Almost every city has this. Furthermore, Google actually has this, and they can get this information from them. So the days of just going in and cutting down trees and hoping nobody notices are pretty much gone. It's just a lot easier to go talk to your municipality, talk to your city, talk to your town, and find out what are the rules around trees, because this is a site that I would probably avoid. The other side of it is I might actually get lucky, because if I see a lot of people and this is sitting on the market for a long time, I'm probably going to know it's because of the trees, and maybe I can do something with it. Okay. The other thing that's cool about this, guys, is you can use this to go back and see if there's a renovation or anything added to the property or anything's changed over the years. Okay. I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. So let's keep going here. So we talked about trees. What about streams and waterways? You're like, okay, what do those matter, Dad? I can go to the site and I can see if there's water there. Well, one of the huge things is if there is an active stream or waterway on or near your property, Fish and Wildlife can come in. Okay. They can severely restrict what you can do. Okay. They can completely change your setbacks. I'll give you guys a little bit of a story time here. We had a property that we looked at. It was in an agricultural area. Checked everything, and the streams were completely dried up. Okay, completely dried up. Wasn't water in there at all. We did look on the map, and we saw that at one time there was a stream there. So we knew we had to bring in a wildlife expert. They came in, and what they said is there's spotted turtles potentially in the area, and they needed to bring an expert in to see if any of the habitat for the spotted turtle was left, right? There was not a single turtle. There was nothing. This thing was dead, bone dry. Even on the biggest rainstorms, no water came down there. This cost us tens of thousands of dollars in reports to find out. Because if there was a single spotted turtle in any of that stream, our setback from that area would go from 5 feet Okay, 5 feet, 250. Okay, for that particular, I don't know if it was endangered or whatever, but it basically restricted our the usefulness of the lot tenfold. Okay, thankfully they didn't find them, but that whole ordeal took about, I'd say about 6 to 8 months. We had to take where the stream was, draw how far out the restriction would be, and present that to the city to say, okay, well, if there is a spotted turtle, this is what we're going to build. If there isn't, this is what we're going to build. I don't know why we had to do that. I still to this day don't know. I'm like, let's find out if there's a spotted turtle and then we'll make the decision. But the purchase price on that lot was really low because nobody wanted to deal with it. We got a great deal in the end. It all worked out, but we may not have gotten a great deal. We took the chance, right? All right, let's keep going here. Oh, sorry, I want to show you guys. So I'm going to show you another one here. How to use this mapping software and show you really how powerful it is. So this is 3856 Rumble Street. So once again, we're going to go to our website. We're going to go into Burnaby here, 3856. Now, you guys are going to see that inside the layer list here, I've gone into geographical, oops, right, yeah, environmental, waterway. Okay, so I clicked the waterway on. Do you see what changed? So it's showing me there was a stream there, but now it's showing me how big it is. Also, now I can look into what is the water flow with this. Now, you may be asking me, Jag, why does it matter if there's a water flow going through this lot? Okay, it's going through 3866. It's not touching 3846. And the reason for that is it could also cause a depth restriction. You may only be able to dig so deep. The other thing is that water can actually be active underground. So let's say you're doing a deep foundation. When you dig the hole, the water is going to be coming in, which means you may need to pump it out and deal with it. But if it's a stream, like that's a tributary, I forget what that means when it comes to water flow. But if it's got a lot of flow, that's going to be a lot of headache during your build. Okay, we've had situations where we're putting foundations in where we've literally had to reroute the underground stream around the construction area because it was just too much water to pump out on a daily basis. Okay, so this isn't a huge deal, but it's definitely something you'd want to think about. And that's what all these things are. I don't want to scare you guys away from being in development. These are just things that you want to make sure you just check. You know, like we could have gone through everything we just went through in 5-6 minutes. And let's say we're looking at 3836 on Rumble. It would probably be clear of all of these things, which the majority of lots are. Like if I zoom out on here, you can see how few underground streams there actually are. There's a few in this area, which is very well known for it. Sorry, oops, I'm going to the website here. So I zoomed out here. So you guys can see here, there's a few streams over here. But if you kind of go around the area and go up and over, you can see there's none over here. But it's just something to know and something to understand that you just want to take a quick look at. Let's keep going here. Slope. So why do we care about slope? So when you're looking at your property, you don't actually, especially when you're looking online, you don't know what the elevation changes are, right? So let's go through another example here. I'm going to go back to our websites here. I'm going to go back into VanMap. Okay. Actually, first, you know what I'm going to do? I want to go back to Google Maps, and I'm going to put in this address, 3950 West 37. Okay. Let's put our satellite on. Here's our property here. Looks like a great lot. Okay. Looks like nice. You don't really see any issues with slope or anything. Okay. Then maybe you go to Street View. Right? We're looking at it like, oh, okay, it's on a street going downhill. This is down. It doesn't really actually look too bad. But now what I'm going to do is I want to go into VanMap. And I'm going to look for the same property. So it's 3950 West 37. Okay. Wait for that to come up. Here it is. So here's our property. Looks similar to what we were seeing on that. So go back to Google. We'll go back to our other view. Oops, sorry. Go back to this. So this is, I'm going to show you guys what the difference here between the mapping software is. So here you can see the picture of the property. Looks great. Now let's go over to VanMap. Looks very similar. But what I can do is, once again, I'm going to go up into these layers. And here I can go down to environment. And what I want to look for is contour lines. What these contour lines are going to show me are, if I go back to this, the grade. So here it shows, if I zoom in, this is 50 meters. Okay. I'm going to zoom back out. So this goes 50 to 45. So what I know between here and here, in that 5 meters, we've dropped 15 feet. That's a lot. So that means from the front yard to the backyard, it's a 15-foot difference. Now you're going to be like, Jag, why does that matter? Because we may have to dig a lot deeper foundation. So at this particular property, I actually know when we built this one, we had to put a 12-foot foundation at the front here. Okay. And it caused us to have to put in window wells. It really restricted the light coming into the front of the house. And also all the stairway coming down here caused a lot more work. Okay. So it added a huge amount of cost. The amount of dirt that we had to pull out of here probably cost us an extra $20,000 to $30,000 in just dirt. Excavation time, probably an extra $10,000. So you can see how these numbers can add up quick. Okay. So this is a great way this tool allows you to figure out. And I want you guys to just look through here. There's tons of stuff. Okay. Contour lines, trees. You can mark out. So here they're marking out where the city trees are, if you guys can see. There's so much information. Take your time. Go into your local mapping service. So there's like VanMap, Birdingman Map. You have to find out for your local area. And you can kind of just play with this. It's all free. Well, most cities it's free. And there's a ton of information that you can learn from here. Now, let's keep going with this. Hopefully you guys are liking this and it's making a lot of sense. What about things like peat? Okay, so what peat is it's basically something that's underground, it's compressible, and when you're building your foundations, you'll either have to put in piles to support the home or do some kind of a floating foundation. This can easily add $50,000 to $100,000 to your build, like instantly. Okay, so if you're buying a property, you're probably going to want to know, is there any peat? So let's kind of do another similar thing here. Let's go back to our friendly service of VanMap. I'm going to put in, what's our address we're looking for? 628 East 17th. So we're going to go 628 East 17th. Wait for that to come up. Pull up our property. Now I still have the contour lines on. So I'm going to close this for a sec. You can see that no contour lines are actually showing up here until I zoom out. You can see how little slope there is here. Between this line and this line is 5 meters. Whereas before, we had them about, on the screen, about an inch apart. So you can see how much drastic difference that has for slope. Now, I'm going to go back into our subject property. Where is it here? So we're looking for 628 17th. So we're right here. Okay. Now, I want to check if there's peat. So I'm going to go into this thing again, to layer list. I'm going to go back into environment, and you're going to see for this particular city, for Vancouver, Vancouver's really good about this stuff. I can put peat areas. So you can see here, they said unconfirmed. Now you're going to be like, whoa, check, why the whole screen went green? The whole area is peat. Actually, it is. Because what I'm going to show you is if I zoom out, you can actually see where all the peat is. So if you were to be buying any property in this area, and it falls, I would say even close to this, I would want to get a soil sample to find out, is there peat? Because that's going to drastically change my construction costs, right? Once again, just a very simple way to find out. And if you zoom out even more, eventually this will load and show you all of the peat maps. So here you can see the contour lines. So I'm actually going to turn those off so that we can see things a little clearer. Go back. So you can see this is a peat area. This is a peat area. You can see there's not many, but look at these tiny little pockets that are down here. Imagine buying a property in there and not knowing about it. you could lose tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars even, right? Let's talk about the next thing, floodplain. So basically floodplain means is that the water comes up to a certain level, you're going to flood your property. And when you're building in those areas, the city may require you to put in a special foundation. We had a situation with this where we had to put in a special floating foundation, and we had to fill the foundation with structural backfill. Okay, so that means a certain type of sand or a certain type of fill that the engineer approves. And at every point of the backfill, basically every foot, we had to do a compression test to make sure that the structural backfill was proper. Okay, this added, once again, like hundreds of thousands of dollars to this build. This was a big house. So it was a lot of work. It had probably 2 months of time just to the mess around trying to get this all worked out with the engineers and everything in the city and getting it perfect. It added a ton of time. So let's do the same thing here. We're going to go back to our website. This time I'm not going to even bother with the address, okay? I'm just going to show you guys. So we're on our website. Once again, same thing, VanMap, because we're looking in Vancouver this time. We had our peat areas here. Well, if you look below, there's floodplain. So I'm going to turn peat areas off. I'm going to turn floodplain on. Okay? There's no floodplain. Everything looks good. Let's keep zooming out. Whoa, what are these lines here? So now you can see, if we go down to this area, all of these homes, this is in Kerrisdale and Dunbar, basically below this line, are all within the floodplain. So that means if you're constructing a home in here, you're going to have to spend more. So this is just another example of something you want to look for when you're looking at a lot. And all I do is I have a checklist that I go through for all this stuff. Okay. And it doesn't take much time. If we go back to this website, and we zoom it all the way out, here we can see the floodplains rather easily. And you can go to the contour map and you can save searches and things, and you can choose, okay, peat areas. You can do your contour lines. You can add in if there's any water or underground water things, add those all in, and you can kind of see the areas that have anything going on. Okay. Very easy to do. Let's keep going. Access and parking. This is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, but you guys are probably thinking about access and parking for when you build a house for the clients. I'm talking about access and parking for when you have people coming to your site, when you're doing the builds and the development. Okay. Can a delivery truck get to your site? Okay. Will there be additional charges for cranes? So let's just say you are in an area with like those 10-foot alleys, or you have a very narrow street. You may not be able to get in a concrete truck or a delivery truck, which means they have to park further away and bring in a smaller machine and unload the stuff like that. Or even worse, they can't even unload it and you have to handbomb it. Okay. Which costs more labor, more time. Okay. Can your excavator even get on the site? We've had situations where we wanted to use a large excavator because it's a large site, but we literally couldn't get it to the site. So we had to use smaller machines, which took longer, more hours, more time. We had to use smaller dump trucks to get the material out. So when you're looking at the lot, think about accessibility. Think about, can I get a crane in there if you need a crane? Can I get in my concrete trucks, my delivery trucks, my drywall trucks, all of that stuff? Also, you're going to want to think about, what are the parking restrictions? Can your trades even park on the site? Do they need to park far away? Okay, some places say you can only park for an hour, 2 hours. You need a local permit. Can you go get a permit from the city that allows you to block off the front of your street? Is there anywhere to put a garbage bin? If you're working on a small site, you may not be able to install the garbage bin on your site. So can you park one in the alley? Can you park one in the front seat? Can you buy parking for that area? So a lot of the times in the construction sites we go to, we'll ask the city, can I reserve the front of my property for the next 10 months? Okay, or year, or 2 years, depending on what I need. I'm sure you guys have seen it, restricted between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. They don't usually give 24 hours, but sometimes you can get them. But you want to think about, when my trades come to site, where are they going to put their vehicles? How are they going to unload their tools? How are they going to unload their materials? Because if they always have to fight for parking, they're not going to like coming to your site. Okay. And also, you're going to hate it when you go to visit your site or your project manager or your builder. So just think about it. Can I get the materials on site? It's a 5-second thought to figure out if stuff will happen. This is a big one. Check your title search. You want to know, are there any easements? Is there any restrictions on that property not allowing you to do what you want to do? Is there an easement? So I've seen properties that have an easement for future use for the city. Or we had a property where there was an easement on it for the neighbor's gutter. I forget what it was. It was a tricky one. But it had a really weird easement. We were able to get it removed. But before we bought it, we had a subject to make sure we can remove it. Okay, so you definitely want to do that. Restrictive covenants. Again, do you have something on there that says something about, there used to be ones like 1939 railway covenants in Vancouver. Okay, you can get rid of them, but you want to know it's there before you buy the property, or at least put a subject to get it removed or find out if it can be removed. A great thing to do with all these ones, use of land restrictions, you can talk to companies that are title specialists and they can help you. That's a great way to do it. The other thing too is, don't be scared off by these restrictions. Just because you see something on title, don't run away. If you put in the work, you can be the person that gets the win. There could be other people that are scared to buy this property, which will bring the price down. But if you do your diligence and you do your work, you can be the one that gets the win. So let's go through some final thoughts. We covered a lot of information here. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, come to Priya School. I'm always ready to help. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what my mindset is when I'm looking for a lot and helping people out. So first things first, always, if possible, walk the site. If you can't, find somebody else. When you walk the site, you will see things that you will not even think about. Even on my list, there are things that I don't realize, don't think about, forgot to put on my list, but stuff you just can't even contemplate. Okay. So give you an example of something here. Well, let me go back a second here. I'm going to look at this 2955 Fraser. Okay. I'm just going to pull this up on Facebook. This was actually a funny one that we looked at that I didn't realize. Okay? So I'm just going to go to Google again, 2955. You guys can see how easy this is. So I'm just going to Fraser Street. And where's our property here? So here's our property. Okay. Not even thinking anything about it. Looking at the property. Okay. It's on a corner, side access for the garage. Now I want to go quickly to Street View. Look at the Street View. Don't think anything about it. Go over here. Okay. There's the house. No big deal. Oh, wait a second. What is this? And then I zoomed out. There's a Shaw Go biking right beside the property. Like, you may not want that beside your lot. Also, this is going to restrict access for parking for your trades, your material deliveries. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Where are they going to put this stuff? They can't park on the street over here. They're not allowed. They can't park anywhere on this side. They're not allowed. All of this down here is permit parking. So how do you get your material in and out? Can you imagine having to have a concrete truck? It can't sit here. So are you going to have it down here? You have to block it? Or are you going to have to pay for the city to block this off and get in some kind of a traffic plan to deal with diverting traffic here, which means you have to have flaggers. Every single time you get a delivery, every single time concrete shows up, wood delivery, drywall delivery, all your materials, you have to submit a traffic plan of how you're going to deal with the people going by. Huge pain in the ass. So if you walk the site, you definitely would notice that. Okay. Google Maps is great, but it never replaces walking the site. Let's keep going. Talk to the neighbors. So you want to talk to the people around. And one of the reasons that you may want to think about that is, I'm going to go to another site. This is actually in this same area because we did talk to the neighbors. Okay, 656 East 13th. So let's go back to our website here. And funny enough, this was a while back. And you're going to understand why we cared about this. So this is the property here that we developed. But we talked to this person here. Now, what we found out is he actually owned this property, this property, this property, and this property. He owned them all. And he wasn't planning to develop any of them because he knew that eventually this would get rezoned. That's what he was hoping on. Oddly enough, that's what happened. But we knew how long it was going to take. And we were actually able to buy, build, sell this duplex and do really well on it in that time span. I do know for a fact that these 5 houses now are part of a redevelopment strategy to sell all of these because Fraser all got rezoned. Okay. And this guy is basically working on these 5 properties here to rezone these to build townhomes. Okay. So just a kind of a cool example of you want to talk to the neighbors and find out what's going on. You never know where things are at. They're going to, maybe there's a horrible neighbor next door that if you go to build something, you know, it's going to be a pain, that maybe you want to get on the good side before things start. Right. You know, it's always important to just have a chat with them. Okay. Now let's go through the last things. Coordinating your professionals. You want to make sure you're talking to your surveyors, talking to your builder, you're talking to your architect when you're looking at these plans, because they may think about things that you're not going to think about when it comes to reviewing the lot. Sorry here. Oh, jeez. Sorry, guys. So I was hit the wrong button. So yeah, architects, engineers, arborists, builders, coordinate with them, ask them questions about stuff that you find when you're doing your due diligence, and they can really help you decipher what's going on. Okay, if you don't understand anything about the building code, talk to your builder. If you don't understand anything about building depths and setbacks, talk to your architect. If you're worried about something with the ground or digging a lot, talk to the engineer or Pete. You know, what am I going to have to do with this house if I've got Pete? Talk to your engineer, okay? All of these people can help you. If you're worried about trees, talk to arborists and things like that. Build up your team, speak with them. The other thing is, use priaschool.com. I'm gonna say it again, guys. We're a great community. We're there to help you guys. Sign up. It's free. Ask questions. And I will always ask them and I'll answer them. I'm always there to help you guys. And don't be scared. Okay? Dream big. Anybody can do this. All right? It's not hard. You just need help. And like I said, Pria School, we're always willing to help you guys. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that. Gave you guys a little bit of a glimpse into what you want to think about when you're buying the right building lot. Save yourself from losing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars by getting stuck with the wrong lot. Sometimes it's not even just financial. It can be time. It can be restrictions, especially if if you're trying to build a home for yourself. Don't have your dream home or your potential home ruined because you didn't understand some of the potential restrictions in that area. The other thing is, take advantage of those restrictions. Be the person that's knowledgeable, that knows how to get around them. Get yourself a better deal. Negotiate. Let the real estate agent know, hey, did you know this restriction's here, this restriction's here, this restriction's here? I hope you're telling all the people buying this lot that they know about these restrictions, because they have to disclose that when you tell them, right? So if you do your due diligence, there's no reason that they can hide it from the next buyer. You tell them and they have to tell everybody. Put them on even playing ground, okay? So once again, come to Pria School. Ask me any questions if you want to know anything more about this or want to learn more about the tools, or you'd like me to do another webinar in more depth about maybe some of the mapping services, like I showed you, Van Map, Burnaby Map, or some even more in-depth tricks that we do with Google Map, or land title and that kind of stuff. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you again.